Good morning, my colleagues, and good morning to the people of Guam. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, Housing will continue the discussion on Bill 282-35. We need to wrap up DYA with Senator Shelton will introduce whatever the amendment needs to be, and Ms. Lonnie Brennan should be coming on. We're just waiting for her right now, but unless Senator Shelton, we'll just pause. Just wait for her to come on first, and then we'll discuss it, or do you want to go ahead and discuss it now?
Mr. Chair, I think I can start discussing it, and if so, we can keep moving forward, and she'll be logging on shortly. So first, yes, thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much for your patience. Last night I was able to work with our OFB, and this morning with legal counsel to redraft these amendments. And so I've separated them, and I'll be withdrawing last night's amendment, Mr. Chair. And there's now a new amendment. The first amendment is on page 24, line 69. And this is for the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program.
I apologize, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
yeah. The point of order so you can withdraw the amendment.
Yes, let's go to your motion is to withdraw. Let me trying to look for that, which was line 24, line 25.
Line 25.
It was line 25 when the amendment was the continuing appropriation authorization, or was it the because you already deleted line 20. So okay, and you're asking, your motion is to withdraw. Am I correct?
Well, Mr. Chair, it was one amendment that deleted from line 20 to line 24 and then added a new line 25 with the continuing appropriation language. So I'll be withdrawing that, and I have two new amendments to replace them.
Okay, so the motion is to withdraw your amendment of that you proffered, which identifies line 25, page 69, correct? And it identifies the continuing appropriation authorization.
Again, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is there any objection to that motion? There's no objection to my colleagues. Sometimes I need to get reminded. Yes, Senator Barris?
I don't see the amendment in the drive. Can it be placed in the chat, please? I don't. Oh, okay. I just needed to refresh. Can you?
Do you see it now?
Oh, the page 69 one. Okay, I see it now. Thank you.
Right. The motion is to withdraw. If I'm correct, I think we need to vote on this one again. Joe, let's do a roll call. Let's motion to withdraw that amendment.
May I just confirm, Senator Shelton, this is the amendment on page 69, line 20?
5.
That's correct, yes. The amendment last night was deleting line 20 to line 24 and then adding a new line 25. That's the amendment I'm withdrawing.
Okay, let me just make sure I have that in front of me. So I'm sorry, just so that I understand, there are two amendments?
Yeah, there was two amendments. One was to delete line 20, and then the other one was to add line 25.
Line 25, and those are both being withdrawn.
Mr. Chair, it was actually one amendment yesterday to delete and then add. So it was all on one page yesterday. The amendments that I sent in today, OFB has asked me to split them into two. And so this morning I sent in two separate amendments. Last night's amendment was all one amendment on one sheet, deleting line 20 to 24 and adding a new line 25 for the continuing appropriation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, and
on the motion to withdraw, Chairman San Agustin?
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chairman Joe?
Aye.
Vice Chair Rangel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Gungan.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz Barnes.
Gungan.
Speaker Munoz Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Gungan.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Talahi.
Gungan, yeah.
Senator Therese Talahi, aye. Senator Peter Talahi.
Again.
Senator Peter Talahi, aye. Senator March Taitano.
Gungan.
Senator March Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Gungan.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Gungan.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Gungan.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Gungan.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitagui.
Gungan.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Mr. Chair, the motion to withdraw received 15 ayes.
All right, thank you. Now, Senator Shelton, thank you, my colleagues. That motion passes. I'm just very curious because I know that the new amendment you're going to add on. You had first deleted it, now you're putting it back in, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the additional information from OFB last night stating that this is actually a separate appropriation from the general fund appropriation on line 6. He clarified that last night. So I will not be deleting the section, but adding an additional line to the section to read, notwithstanding any other provisions of law or rule or regulations, the funds appropriated for the Summer Employment Youth Training Programs may be used for operations of DYA in the event the programs cannot be implemented or continued due to the COVID-19 pandemic or natural disaster, and such appropriation shall continue to be available to DYA for its operations until fully expended. Mr. Chair, as we discussed last night, DYA was not able to implement this year's Summer Employment and Youth Training Program because of the COVID-19 crisis. They began in January to plan. They spent a little money on administrative fees, beginning to get the program up. We had lots of plans for a job fair for our young people. We had plans for placement in the different agencies throughout the government of Guam. And we were just, as many things were canceled this year, so was the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program. So I know we worked very hard together last year to add this into the budget. And I would still like to see the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program, I think now more than ever, as we face a difficult time with our economy, as many opportunities are not coming to fruition anymore. This is an opportunity for our young people to have exposure to public service, to be contributing members of our community, to learn some skills in the government, and to be economic drivers in our community. So this is an amendment to ensure that if we are not able to go through with it one more time this summer, if the COVID crisis continues, which we pray that it won't, that DYA will still be able to use this money for operations. And as the director shared yesterday, there are lots of things they can use it for: training for their employees, more workers in DYA, better facilities for their cottage homes, for their youth correctional facility, for their village youth resource centers. The list is really endless, and as we've seen, they've been short for many years over the last few years, and this is something that can make them a little more whole.
Understood. Okay, thank you, Senator Shelton. The only reason I was asking about it is because last night when we were discussing line 20, we deleted it. So you're putting it back in, but with the notwithstanding provision. I just want to make sure that's understood.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. After my discussions with OFB, this is what I feel is the best option for the department to keep their funding within the department to carry out their mission. Whether or not things are possible next year for the summer youth employment program or not, they'll be able to use these funds the way they need to use it.
All right, understood. I just want to, is there anyone else who'd like to make, pose a question? Senator Paris.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Lonnie, and thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well today. Yeah, just the question, if you can, I mean, I know your vision, I support your vision in regards to DYA, and that, prevention is always the key to, as far as preventing some of these, behaviors. I do support that. The question is in regards to the federal matching. So this part is for, I believe, for federal matching. Is that correct?
Actually, that's incorrect. We currently do not have any federal funding for positive youth development programs aside from our OJJDP Title II formula grant. That formula grant gives us about $74,000 per year to help with program activities within our community resource centers.
Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, I'll just maybe have the question offline with the, yeah, I'm just wondering because it's in the federal matching grants and aid. So it was my assumption or my conclusion that there was a federal grant attached to it.
Again, we are constantly looking for grants to help us with positive youth development. And although we haven't gotten any yet, we're hopeful that we will obtain some federal matching funds.
Okay, so this could go towards that, basically.
Yes, it could.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I think Steve commented on that, why it was listed that way last night. If he could explain again how it's placed in that section.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, for purposes of identifying fund sources that are being appropriated in the bill, if you look at the template that we use for all the departments and agencies, we listed down within the summary of appropriations for each department, the totals of how much each fund is providing and funding the agencies. So for example, on DYA on line 9, you have summary of appropriation for funding source. You have the general fund, which is normally strictly just for operations. Then we broke it down to other various special funds. If special funds are being appropriated to the agencies, we have a total amount of those amounts. And then we normally also indicate if the department is receiving any federal match. And that federal match amount would be reflective within the department's total summary, just for information purposes. So normally what happens is that if there is a federal match figure reflected here, that the local match is normally funded out of the fund sources under the summary of appropriations, either the general fund or any other special fund that is basically was created to provide the local match share for these grants. So in the case of DYA, they listed no federal matching grants for at least up to the time we did the budget. Therefore, we just put down 0, just for information purposes only.
Right. In other words, Steve, based on this page 69, it's not listing number 2 and number 3 under federal matching. The federal matching is just one sentence saying that's what it is. Number 2 and 3 stands alone. It's not part of the federal matching. Am I correct?
That's correct. The federal matching grant, when you see on line 14, is part of section 1.
Okay.
So if you
and
look
then
at
section 2 is standalone and 3.
And it breaks it down. Yeah.
Okay. I think that should have answered that. Senator Parrish, did you have any questions on that? Federal matching is not the title of those paragraphs. Okay, thank you. Senator Shelton, wait, no, back to anyone else like to discuss the motion? Seeing none, Senator Tello and then Senator Therese. Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand what Steve was saying. So technically, really what DYA is making here, it's not just 5.3,115,558. That's not what their full appropriation is. The full appropriation is actually $6,085,897. So you're taking 2 and 3, adding that up toward the total amount. Is that correct, Steve? So the full amount that they're getting from the general fund as well as special funds is $6,085,897. Is that correct, Steve?
You are correct, Senator.
Okay. So last year in the FY20 budget, they were appropriated from the general fund? Yeah, general fund for the summer employment training program, $600,000. And this was something that was given to them to start this type of training and program. And I think we had a public hearing on it. It was Senator Shelton's bill that talked about it, and it was such a great idea and moving toward that section, but it didn't happen. So where is that 600,000 that was appropriated to DYA for that program? Where is that right now? And did it give you authorization to spend, if you spent it on something else, did you have authorization to spend it on something else other than this summer employment training program? So this question is to Lonnie.
Hi, thank you, Senator. Senator Tello, what happened was some of the general funds that we were receiving in FY 2019, we were shorted. And so some of that went to the general fund received through the Summer Youth Employment Program. Administratively, we did move 2 warm-bodied personnel to that funding source to plan, our youth development administrator and a social worker or a community program aide to that, that funding source to administer the program, to start up the meetings with the Department of Labor, to work towards implementing the program in this year, this summer. Obviously, we recognized in March that we would not be able to. And so much of the money was not spent aside from the operational administrative costs.
So that being said, here we are appropriating an additional $570,339. That's what this bill would do. When it's obvious when they said, okay, as far as the 2019 short, that was short. And that was in 2019, but that should not give you the authority to use the funding that was appropriated in FY20 for anything that was short in 2019, because it's specific to the program. Now, you did use some of that money for a position, a coordinator. So there's still money left over. So why are we still appropriating an additional $570,000, $339 to this program when they still have the money there and use it for FY 2021? This amendment should actually just, because there's a lot of places we're looking for funding here. Public health was an issue that we need to look. I mean, it just doesn't matter how much is given. Cancer care only receives 60, maybe 60,000. Hopefully, if there's any left over from the Healthy Futures Fund. But this is funding that can go somewhere else because they already have this. I am in total support of this summer employment youth training program. Like I was during the public hearing. I was so in support of it and I want to see it go through, but they didn't use the money. And here we are adding more money on top of it when there's still money sitting there that could be used, that could be used for this program moving forward. And we all know that it's going to be very difficult. COVID is not going to end tomorrow, and it's going to be very difficult to start even this year, maybe next year. And that would give them only 3 quarters to implement. So my point is, Mr. Chair, you know, I have no problem carrying over any FY 2020 money that was appropriated to this program and to continue on with the program. But to add another 500 additional funding, because last year they were given 600,000. 600. This one says 570. So, you know, they that's
Okay.
less than 30,000. But my point is, Mr.
All right.
Chair, we're looking for money for other agencies that are cut on their programs. And this is money that could be sent there because this program is not being jeopardized.
All right, Sanatello, your point is well taken, all right?
Mr. Chair,
uh,
offer a point of information.
Okay, hold on, all right, Senator Tello?
Well, I just want to reserve to come back in case there's an amendment, you know, that would have to be made, okay?
Then when there's an amendment, everybody gets to speak again, then it
Sure, thank you.
becomes new, but your point is well taken, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr.
All
Chair,
right, Senator Shelton, before we go to Senator Reese, you want to respond to that in reference to the money, because you're the oversight of that agency, and you can, hopefully
Yes,
show
thank
some
you
light.
very much, Mr. Chair. So last year we had an appropriation for $600,000 from the general fund to the Summer Employment Youth Training Program. So as we mentioned earlier, we were not able to use those funds because of the COVID crisis, and only, as the director mentioned, only 2 employees were moved to this funding to begin the administrative functions of carrying out the program. So a little money of it has been used. However, we have not gotten to the amendment yet to allow for the continuing appropriations. And as I discussed last night when we talked about that amendment, I plan to offer that amendment to allow them to use it for their operational costs and not for the summer youth employment and youth training program. So there's still an amendment forthcoming for a continuing appropriation of those funds, the $600,000, whatever is left of it from the summer employment and youth training program from FY 2020, so that they can continue using that money in 2021. And this is an amendment now to keep the program, but to allow them in any event that that we are not able to have the program, carry out the program, they can use the money how they need to use it within the department to carry out other programs. Because as you know, the mandate of DYA is not just a youth corrections facility, but it is to carry out programs that help our youth, programs that are made for youth development, for rehabilitation, for involvement with the community, programs that prevent recidivism, programs that prevent substance abuse, so many different programs. And so when we think about DYA, I know a lot of people only see it as a youth correctional facility, but it is so much more. It is mandated with so much more than just a youth corrections facility. And that's why I'm proffering this amendment this way.
All right, thank you.
Point of information.
Stand by for
Just a point of information. I just have a point of information.
No, hold on, Senator Tello.
I can't give a point of information?
No, if you could please just give me 1 second first. I mean, let's not just all be jumping in that everybody's got a point of information. I want to get Ms. Lonnie Brennan to explain exactly what's going on at DYA. Because your point of information is just yours, but I believe the director should be able to answer.
It's to share amongst the colleagues that last year they're only $117,000 short from last year. It's not, you know, anyways, never mind. You guys can look at the numbers. Comparable.
Yes, please, Ms. Brennan, if you could please explain what happened, because you were funded specifically for the summer employment and youth training. And I think that's what my colleagues need to understand. You were specifically funded for that program, and exactly what Senator Tello asked is, how did you spend the money, and where's the money, and how much is left? And I think that's what everyone would like to know, so we can move on this.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Senator. So as I explained before, some of the money was used for administrative costs, but clearly in March, we understood that we probably would not be able to roll it out. We do have a program, as Senator Shelton is aware. We do have a program that's ready to go when we're safely able to implement. But what we have been doing on the other side, as Senator Shelton mentioned, is we're really working very, very hard on a re-entry and aftercare program for the clients that we do serve at the youth correctional facility. We need to make sure that when these youth leave our correctional facility, they have a program that follows them. We need to ensure that they have substance abuse treatment. They need to be linked. If they have issues in the community, we need to link them to those issues. Everyone thinks that, when you send children to the youth correctional facility, and however long they stay, they magically get better, but they don't. We have to offer them, and we have to provide them with services in the community. We have not done that. We constantly fund our operations for the 24/7 youth correctional facility. That's where all our money has been going. Now we have an opportunity to actually use it for programs that we can implement. And I see where Senator Tello is coming from. You've given us money. We haven't used the bulk of it because we couldn't. We simply could not implement it safely. So what we're doing is we're looking at other opportunities, other programs that can help our kids with better outcomes for them and their families. And I think that's what we're mandated to do. We focus so much on incarceration, but we need to focus on them in the community so that they aren't recidivists, so that they don't just graduate to DOC.
Understood. Okay, Ms. Brennan, but I just wanted to remind you, and exactly what Senator Tello brought up. The funding was specifically for the summer employment and youth training, and that's the issue this questioning. The amendment would ask to move the money for other operations, but if it wasn't there then that's what the question is what's being posed by Senator Tello. And Senator Tello, I hope that answers your questions and pretty much settles that, and then we can move to Senator Therese for her questions.
Well, then, Lonnie, did you guys use this money for anything else other than the summer program? I guess, according to Senator Amanda Shelton, she said there were 2 people that were hired as program coordinators. If it didn't go through and the program didn't go through, what are these people doing? Just not doing anything, sitting there and being paid for a program that's not even implemented or started? Or that's my question too. So the money was specifically for that, and I still didn't hear whether you used that money for anything else.
I thought that I had answered that. We did not hire 2 new people. We simply operationally, we just adjusted and we put them in that program to administer, to develop a sound program that we could implement safely. So you are correct. We didn't use the money to roll out a program. We used it to develop a program, to design one that could work for our community. And again, like Senator Shelton mentioned, it's not a huge amount of money. And so we wanted to make sure that we targeted the right kinds of kids that need these supports, that need to learn that, yeah, you can get a job and you can earn a living. And so we were very, very deliberate in planning the program out. Unfortunately, we could not roll it out. And yes, there is money available, and I do understand your concerns.
Okay, and so there is still that $600,000 in there for this program to get moving. That's my point.
Yes, no, it's not the total amount, because some of it moved to administrative costs, and you will always incur that anytime you try to roll out a program.
Yeah, I understand. So there still is money in there, Mr. Chair, is my point. And
yes,
that's my concern. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Senator Shelton, you have another
yes, just a point of information that I discussed earlier is that I have an amendment forthcoming to allow them to use the leftover money from the appropriation from the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program from FY 2020 to allow them to use it in this fiscal year, Mr. Chair.
Okay, isn't that your amendment we're discussing when you read Summer Youth Program, and in the event notwithstanding the funds appropriated for the Summer Youth Program may be used for operations? Isn't that your amendment, ma'am?
No, Mr. Chair, there is another amendment coming to allow them to use
Okay,
the money
okay.
from FY 2020 for their operations costs. As Director Brennan just stated, there's more than just the summer employment and youth training program that they want to implement. They have their re-entry program that needs a lot of help, family engagement programs that need a lot of help, improving all of this aftercare service to ensure that there is a limit on recidivism, and like she said, not graduating into DOC. So there are other
right.
programs in addition to the summer employment and youth training program that the FY20 money can go to for their operations costs. And this is an amendment now for the department to use the summer employment and youth training program in the event that we cannot move forward with it because of the COVID crisis for other programs, so that we're not in this position again in next year's budget.
All right, thank you. And before I move to Senator Therese, maybe Steve, you can answer that every warm body at DYA are funded generally, correct? I mean, hopefully.
Yes, Senator. And like I said, at the time we developed this budget, all positions that were filled, I believe as of August 7th, if not August 8th, were covered in the department's appropriation.
Okay, and that includes whatever position they're holding, maybe in the summer youth program or whatever the program, but as long as they're at DYA. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear, because it's a matter of identifying to increase a function that if it's not funded today, it's not going to get funded tomorrow because it's not in the books. Senator Therese, you have anything you wanted to bring up, ma'am? I know you had your hand up waved. I just wanted to clear some air.
Sure. So the amendment is to allow this appropriation of 570,000 from the general fund instead of being used for the summer youth program to be used for the operations of DYA. And I noticed that the budget of DYA, the operations were only cut by 117,000. It's about 2.2% of its budget from FY20. Now I realize that, I agree with Lonnie that, DYA could always use more. And the problem is just this year. This year we are facing the most dramatic cuts in budgets across the board that we've ever seen. And we've never seen cuts of 66 million across the board. And we've never seen public health to be cut by 13 million. So I agree that we fund DYA as much as possible. I would even give them the 117 so that they could be up to the levels of FY20 and their operations do not decline in any way. I'm concerned that they've been cut also in section 2. This is the section for services to youth who are runaways, homeless, or victims of abuse. And I would think this is sanctuary. I'm not sure, but it's also cut by looks like 130,000. And I guess if Lonnie could just answer that question first, does this impact your ability? Does this change from 334 to 200,000 impact your ability to provide these services to runaways, homeless, or victims of abuse, or have the prices declined and this will be okay?
So Senator Therese, that is a pass-through account, and that money goes straight to the nonprofit that is able to handle runaway youth. And right now they are basically with this new COVID environment, they're at capacity. So what happens when they're at capacity or when they cannot take in kids? We get them. And so we currently do provide services for runaway, homeless, anyone dually involved, those with child protective services and also with the juvenile justice system. We do provide cottage homes. That's the interim cottage homes that's located on our compound.
All right. So yeah, is the 200,000 going to meet your current obligations in those regards?
Well, that is again, that's a pass-through account. And so we have a contract currently with Sanctuary. And I had asked if we could somehow adjust the contract once it's up for renewal so that we're paying per day, per bed. Because to be quite honest, DYA has never really fully maximized use of our beds. There are some issues sometimes with capacity. And so we generally, when kids are on a waiting list, we generally serve them through the government's Department of the correctional facility itself and our interim cottage homes.
Okay, so I'm gathering from that this amount is sufficient. You are going to make it work for the runaway homeless or victims of abuse program. All right,
Yes,
but yeah,
that's
I also I know that the courts are also, they're doing their special courts for this particular purpose, and that is to expand services to all clients to decrease recidivism, and that they've tried to decrease the number of clients that have to go to DYA, and not always, but that's what their attempts are. That's their new goal. And also to provide the programs, or they're the ones who are making the orders, so they're the ones who are ensuring that there are programs available for these people. But I too supported the summer youth program, and I support a summer youth program, but I just think if we look at our circumstances today, I understand why you weren't able to use this. I am concerned that it's a lot of money, 570,000 one year, 600,000 the next year. That's $1 million. I mean, it's we have people. I don't mean to be facetious, but our businesses have closed. I mean, dramatically. We can't keep them open. I'm not sure that employment of youth is going to occur while we can't keep the businesses open and we can't keep regular personnel employed. So I don't mind raising the operations budget up by 100,000, but I don't think I could agree that the whole 570 is going to go back to operations. I think actually we should look at if we're going to transfer the 600 and let them continue to use that, then that's fine. Then they can use that if they want to do an employment program, or if they think it's a priority to take care of the reentry and aftercare program that they've also begun, then I would give them that flexibility. But to put $1 million towards an employment program, and again, this agency's budget, has for the most part remained intact, Mr. Chair. And
all right.
Yeah, so I'm going to work on it.
Thank you. Lonnie, you made a comment about the youth programs, the homeless, runaways, and victims of abuse. But I don't think you completed your explanation of exactly it's a pass-through. The non-appropriate folks or the nonprofit people are getting funding. That's why it's a pass-through. What is it costing at DYA to do what you're doing to take up the folks that can't go there because they've maxed out? And I think you need to explain that so that we can all understand what's going on at DYA.
So I guess as Senator Terlahi had explained, DYA are really the benefits of juvenile justice reform. And so what has happened is we've reduced our population. The population has been going down from, I think, beginning in 2015, the population was 80 to 100 kids. And so nowadays, typically it's 25 to 30 kids that we serve, and maybe 5 or 6 in cottage homes per month. And so that is a significant decrease. And what that means is that sometimes dually involved children that are both involved in the child welfare system and in the juvenile justice system, in the court system, really have no place to go. They have a pending charge, and they also have some issues at the home front. And so oftentimes we do see them, and we try to make placement, but oftentimes there are difficulties in placement and they end up staying with us for often longer than they should.
So that's your explanation on the youth program. So as a
Mr. Chair,
pass through.
If I could clarify, Mr. Chair, Lonnie, these the costs that you incur when they stay within your facility, you know, under those circumstances, not as juvenile delinquents or anything like that, but these runaways and those in need of that type of care, that's you accommodate that under your operations. Is that correct?
It is correct, but also you have to understand that when I have a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, which really I should not ever have a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, I'm going to have to separate them because I don't want them to be influenced by, you know, a 16 or 17-year-old. And just having to do that, we do incur an operational cost. I'm having to separate staff to go and you know, stay and provide custody and care over the 10 and 11-year-old, which is different from, you know, the delinquent offenders in the youth correctional facility. So it does pose a strain. And when you ask me what the cost is, it is an additional cost. It is sometimes that results in overtime. Sometimes that results in having to place, you know, manpower where it's needed.
Do you need? Sorry, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you could come back to me or if I could.
Let me see who else is out there. Senator, Madam Vice Speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Director Brennan. Early in the term, Senator Shelton submitted a bill to allow the reclassification for, what do you call them now, juvenile?
They're called youth service workers, and they are
okay.
They provide 24/7 hour supervision for our kids, and they are equivalent to the correction officers at DOC.
Right, and so we were trying to ensure that they were able to reclassify as such, because not only do they do the same function as correction officers, but they also receive counselor training and additional training to help the child grow, right, and to focus on the holistic healing of perhaps the abuse that the child went through. And so I just wanted to know the status of that, and with this additional appropriation, if the status is not met, if they haven't yet to transition, will this appropriation actually help them to become at that specific level where they rightly deserve to be? And they're also certified through POST, correct?
That is correct. Thank you. That's actually a good question, and I wanted to clarify. So our youth service workers are the lowest paid correctional officers, law enforcement officers, and so I know that you're all aware, and you all have supported us. But really, what we needed to do was we needed to do it the right way, and so I had to take you know, decades old job descriptions, and I'm working very closely with the Department of Administration. It is a lengthy process, but we have made some headway. We've turned in all of the job description. We've updated all the position description questionnaires. And so that's the route we're taking. Even if I were to be given $200,000 to immediately reclassify, I could not do that until the paperwork was completed, and we wanted to do it the right way. And so that's where we're at. The Department of Administration has all our updated documents, and they're working closely with us to help that process along. Again, it's not something that, you know, I think right now in this time, it would be wrong of me to say, give me that money right now when I know that we haven't done it correctly. It's been a decades old problem. It's something that we're trying to resolve, and hopefully when the economy gets better, we can go ahead and you know, run with that. I know that I have the support of the legislature and the governor and the lieutenant governor. So thank you for having me clarify that.
Okay, so even if this money was to move outside of your operations, you wouldn't need this money because you wouldn't be able to reclassify them on time in the next fiscal year.
Well, I'm hopeful that we are able to do it, and we're, by then the economy would be better. But as of now, it's still a work in progress, and the paperwork is with the Department of Administration, and we're working very closely to get it done as soon as possible.
Hmm. Okay, and if you don't have this money and you're able to get it done in FY 2021, would you be able to reclassify them?
If I don't have the money?
Right, they're fighting over this.
Actually, we're not.
Your appropriations money. And so we're not fighting. We're trying to find creative ways to see how we can spread out this appropriations money for, what you're needed specifically for your operations. And so I'm thinking, if we're moving this back into your operations, will this money help you to reclassify them, or you don't need it?
It would definitely help us if I had the
Okay.
flexibility. And I think that Senator Amanda Shelton's amendment would do just that. Allow me the flexibility to do that.
Okay, thank you. And how long have they, how long has our youth service workers, how long have they been working with post requirements with the same credentials as a correction officer? And how long have they also been required to undergo this, intensive training to service juveniles? How many years has that been since the post came into fruition, right?
Exactly that. Since the start of the post commission, they have been actively engaged in getting their credentials up to par, and I believe that a majority have. We have some. The only ones that are not are the individuals that have medical issues, and that's just a very few that have not come into complete adherence.
Okay, thank you, Director Brennan. And I'm asking this question, Mr. Chair, because there's a disparity here amongst law enforcement. And since the post commission was created, and these were specific requirements that the youth service workers at DYA had to fulfill, they have still been given a lesser amount of pay, but doing the exact same work of a correction officer. And furthermore, to be trained to be a counselor and all the other intensive trainings that is needed to service a child. And so this is just additional add-on that the youth service worker has. And we've been working since even the last term to try to make this right, to try to make sure that there's this a level of equality for the youth service worker. And so I think that's what Senator Shelton was trying to do early in this term, even before we did last year's budget. And so really, Director Brennan didn't want to go through the easy route and put a bill in and say the legislature is going to move these people and they're going to be reclassified. Actually, Director Brennan asked us to hold off and to say, please let me work it through the government system and go through Department of Administration and utilize the process. And so, I commend Director Brennan on trying to utilize this process. But it appears that all of the work that she's done, they're just near completion to transitioning the youth service worker into this correctional officer classification, which they so rightly deserve and has been neglected for many, many years. And so the reason why I'm asking Director Brennan, if moving this money away will prohibit her from doing that. And I'm thinking that since she's probably like 80% completion with working with Department of Administration with this reclassification, that she will get this done in FY 2021. So I'm just thinking that perhaps we can just ensure that there's enough money there, that when the classification paperwork is complete, that our youth service workers are justly compensated. And it's not even a retroactive thing. They're not being greedy and saying, no, pay me back to my retroactive pay of when post-commission started and we did the certification. They're just asking for their just pay and their just classification at present. And so I don't think that's something impossible, something that we cannot do. I think it's something that we can absolutely do. And I'd like to help the oversight chair of DYA in any way to ensure that the Department of Youth Affairs youth service workers are able to receive this just classification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Senator Pito, I saw your hand up. Did you want to speak in reference to DYA?
Thank you very
Reference to
much,
the amendment?
Mr. Chair. Lonnie, you know, we've been working since for several months on reclassifying these officers. And when you look at it, you know, they are supposed to be post-certified. And if you look at the pay ranges of some of these post officers, the officers over at DOA are the lowest paid officers, and this is why we've been trying to move them up and reclassify them to actually to equate their salary with Department of Correction. So you know, it's nice, Mr. Chair, if we just allow the DYA director to start working on that, and the Vice Speaker had mentioned that they're 80% complete on this reclassification. So we need to allow the director to move on forward and reclassify these employees.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pito. Senator Torres, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to rise in strong support to this amendment. We have to understand that in dealing with crime on Guam, the prevalence of crime on Guam, we've got to approach it from a systemic angle. And I believe that Director Brennan and all the programs with DIA are just that. They are the conduit between getting the juvenile justice reform in the courts through to the kids. And, you know, we can't shortchange what is fundamentally necessary. We all believe in education and all that, but what we're not honing in on is the importance of juvenile justice reform and the importance of what Lonnie and her team do in the intervention of people who are in a real critical position. I mean, she basically is the point at which there's intervention to prevent some of these kids from turning into hardened criminals. And so, you know, in terms of how this money is applied, whether it's through a summer training program or other training programs that give them life skills and confidence and just some semblance of dignity to, you know, to transform themselves, that's what we want to invest in. So I absolutely agree that we have to just keep the monies in, you know, because you can try to value something over the other, but you cannot discount the need to approach things at the base level. You know, what is systemically is the problem with crime. A lot of it is the fallout in the families and kids going wayward at a very young age. But if you can catch them and reform that, then you can have a different outcome and break that cycle. And I believe that Director Brennan is doing just that. So I commend you. And also, this is a lady who comes from the court system. You know, she knows exactly what needs to be done. And I have every confidence and trust in her ability. And I want to fund you, Director Brennan. And please don't take their money away. Now, COVID, crime is going to spike. Families are breaking down. Give them all the help they need. We've got to come out of this in a different way also, which is whole. So my support. Thank you, Senator Shelton, for fighting for it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Lee, I saw your hand waving, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just really briefly, I also want to rise in support of these amendments offered by the Oversight Chair of DYA. I was the Oversight Chair of DYA last year. I was also on the Sanctuary Board prior to being elected into office. And yes, it's true, you know, Sanctuary, when they're overburdened, these kids, they push them all back to DYA, what they're unable to handle. So it's really puts an additional burden on DYA's shoulders. There's also been an increase in the cottage homes. And I think what the DYA director was trying to help us to understand is that DYA isn't just the Dairy Road facility. It's also village centers in Dededo, in MTM, in Agate, and those help at-risk kids, and they're still in operation. They're still operational. They're still doing virtual instruction or virtual connection with these kids during this very challenging time. And I think, taking those resources away from at-risk children goes exactly to what Senator Torres just brought up in terms of juvenile justice reform and us working to help break this vicious cycle. These children will become, if we don't step in, they'll be much more costly to the government in the long run, and they'll be, God forbid, if we don't step in, they'll have to, we'll have to pay for it in terms of additional resources to Department of Corrections and, Guam Police Department and all of these other agencies. So I really applaud the efforts of DYA. I understand so many of their challenges, what the Vice Speaker brought up in terms of their service workers. And, I think cutting them off at the legs at this time, at this juncture, when we're, really trying to move in a positive direction, I think will do a disservice to the entire government of Guam. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Senator Kelly, please.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair. And I want to add to what the former speakers have said. We've all listened at public hearings over the last year and a half. We've heard police officers, probation officers, and marshals come in and say the same thing. They say that prevention is worth a pound of cure. And as has been mentioned, we have really high juvenile crime rates. We have really high suicide rates. I mean, some of the highest in the nation. And well, the COVID-19 is only going to add stressors to this. And it's such an investment in all of our future. It's an investment in their future, that they can become productive citizens who are adding to our community. And it invests in all of our future, that we are all lifting each other up and moving forward together and saving ourselves down the road from the higher crime rates or the higher suicide rates and all the fallout that comes from that, and all the costs associated with it. So I do really see the value in this, in prevention, instead of trying to address it later. Sudaswasi.
All right, thank you. Looking around if the others that have not spoken yet. Senator Luis Muñoz, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Lonnie, for being here again this morning. Just have a quick question. If DYA received any CARES money, and if so, how much was that?
Hi, good morning, Senator. Yes, we did receive CARES money. It went to PPEs for the youth that are in the facility and also to the resource centers. I believe the total amount, you know what, I'm sorry, I don't want to misspeak, because we did also apply for the emergency supplemental funding. I believe we received $11,000 for PPEs and disinfectants for the youth correctional facility. We also received funding to set up virtual learning centers in each of the youth correctional facility dorms, as well as the youth resource centers in the 3 villages. I really can't give you a total amount, but we did receive funding.
So, so at this point, you're only aware of, or you can only say 11,000.
I can say 11. I can say 11,000. Some for PPEs and disinfectants. I can say for each virtual learning center, that was 24,500, and I believe you calculate that by 4 for the youth correctional facility and 3 for the community resource centers, and a case management system that would cost us $49,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Muñoz. Anyone else to speak? I don't see anybody else to speak. I know Senator Therese, you wanted, okay. And then we're gonna go ahead and move on the motion. Senator Therese.
Yes, Lonnie, can you just tell us how much was spent then from the 600,000 for, you said 2 employees are being assigned to this youth employment program? How much money is being spent for the?
Actually, 2 that were assigned, but you know, as we're all assisting, we were all assisting in meetings and trying to develop the program. So 2 that I can think of, and how much, gosh, I think maybe Steve or Lester could answer that. I'm not quite sure how much was spent. I know the bulk of it wasn't, though.
Oh, you think you might have spent 600,000 for just?
Oh, no, not at all. The bulk of it wasn't spent, sorry.
All right, because we're going to be transferring over to, well, another amendment looks like it's going to try to transfer over to you the balance of that to use in FY21 for the same program, which should be consistent with what you've been planning. So I just wanted to know how much of that is administrative costs for personnel and yeah, so that we would know. If
Typically administrative costs are about 20% of the total amount. Typically. Again, I don't know for sure. I would have to verify. I know you're asking me for a specific amount and I don't have that handy.
Okay, and all right, and again, but you're saying we're funding Sanctuary, we're funding your operations almost to the level of FY20, and we're funding the same youth program, even with the 2 employees. Okay, I guess, but yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted, yeah, again, you know, DYA is really, it's almost whole. It's not, we did not take much away from DYA in FY21. And so all their efforts, I do commend as well. My issue is that, yeah, we should make them whole. We should even bring this number back up to the FY20 levels. But to give them $1 million more for just one particular program is and to fund raises at this time, I mean, I think let that process play out first. And then, you know, it will, in the process, they're going to, if they're reclassified, when the reclassifies are completed, I'm assuming that's going to take care of pay. I mean, that's what the process is supposed to do, I think. So I'm just saying, let that play out, you know, let's, I don't know. I don't want to go down a tangent of, you know, trying to rectify pay raise issues, you know, right now in the spur of the moment, because I don't think we are able to do that at this point. I am totally in favor of making them up to their FY20 levels, because we don't want decrease in effort. We want them to maintain it, to allow them to take, you know, 1 year's worth of money for this employment program, but not 2 years worth, because that would be $1 million, Mr. Chair. So 1 year's worth of the program that they can feasibly implement and
All right.
move from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Will Castro, I saw your hand. Stand by, Senator Tello. Senator Will, I saw your hand earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to rise in support of the amendment. I'm not a big fan of increasing operational budgets, but in this particular case, as long as it's from the general fund and for this specific agency, I just want to share, you know, over the decades, if there's an important agency, I mean, I can speak firsthand, not as a client, but as someone who's grown up in the village. I don't know why you were looking at me earlier, Mr. Chairman, but in all seriousness, many of my peers growing up in the village ended up at DYA for good or for bad. And I think many of you can attest to the evolution of DYA being this place for persons of abject failure. You know, at least that was the stigma at the time, scare straight and all those kind of, you know, we're going to send you to DYA. And then you see, at least in my lifetime, we've seen the agency evolve into, I don't know if you guys remember the days when they had like youth sports day down at Paseo, and they did a lot of really progressive things. And the reason why I share that with you is because, families, many adults are unemployed. I'm no expert, but the crux of crime, in my opinion, you know, really finds its roots and its early foundations in the formative years of a young man or a young lady. And these are the kind of programs that are designed to straighten the branch before the tree, can't be corrected later in life. And I would rather, Mr. Chairman, consolidate administrative agencies. I would rather see we don't fill through attrition, unfilled administrative vacancies. But I will never stand in the way of allowing progressive programs that touch the lives of youth in Manumco. And if it's to improve this, I have full faith and confidence in Ms. Brennan and in Cristina Calvo. And if they should misuse those monies and use them more for operations and less for our kids, then they're going to answer to us, the people of Guam. But until then, that's the one agency that really we need to look out for, and not when they get to DOC, Mr. Chairman. And so I just want to rise in support of this amendment if it's utilizing specifically monies from the general fund. And that's my take. Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Well, I'm just surprised you didn't mention the motorcycle clubs we belong to. They've always supported the events up at DYA. So, but
Yes, sir.
and that's something we've always supported every year as much as we could. Senator Tello, and we're going to wrap this up and go to the vote. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment, if this is the correct place to do it on this one. I don't want this amendment to, if it should pass, then not have the opportunity. Everybody knows that, I've been a part of DYA for many years, even back when I started as senator, going to DYA and visiting the youth there every Christmas and providing, a Christmas party with them, talking with them. And, I've been an advocate for this. And I think too, that we can make them whole and keep them, as mentioned by one of my colleagues, that we can do that, at least make them at the same level as they were in 2020. So my amendment, Mr. Chair, is to do that, to incorporate the carryover of 600,000, as well as whatever funding else that's needed. And I believe it's 117,173 additionally compared to last year. So we would take the 570,339 funding, subtract the 117,173, give it to DYA and make them whole again. It's just, I'm looking for the same funding. However, in section 2, it was already mentioned that this funding of 200,000 is basically a pass-through to contracted non-government nonprofit organizations. So she's fine with that one. So that's what I want to do, Mr. Chair, is just try to make them whole to the FY 2020 budget that was provided for them last year. And
do you have your amendment proffered?
It's being
I'm
proffered.
looking for it.
Yeah, it's being proffered right now, Mr. Chair. It should be sent to Joe. And I just want to make sure too with Steve, if I can get a short recess, I want to talk with Steve to make sure that it meets his requirement too. So if we can take a short recess, Mr. Chair.
Let's take a short recess, all right?
Thank you,
We take
Mr.
a
Chair.
short recess. And thank you, Lonnie, you came back on, but just hold on, okay? Short recess, please. Thank you.
One.
Thank you, my colleagues. We've returned back from recess from Senator Tello's discussion with Steve. And to the people of Guam, thank you for your patience. Senator Tello, do you have an amendment? I'm looking for your amendment so we can.
You know, Mr. Chair, while it might be just as simple as this, Mr. Chair, and it's just to deduct from the 500 on the Senator Amanda Shelton on her amendment is to deduct from the 570,339 to read 251,343. And this, Mr. Chair, will, with the amendment that's coming up, proffering further after this amendment, will allow the carryover of the 600,000. So, Mr. Chair, what I did was simply take the FY. Yeah.
Senator Tello, do you have your amendment? I'm looking for your amendment. Okay, we're going to address it by amendment. Nothing is simple because my colleagues here have always asked, where's the amendment in writing so we can vote on it?
Mr. Chair, then if it's still being, being sent. I spoke to Steve earlier during the break, so we're going over the numbers, and I'll contact him again to make sure, to see if he got the amendment. Okay.
All right, good. I'm looking for the amendment. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. We're voting on any amendment. It's in writing. It's for the record, and everybody, my colleagues and the people of Guam, sees it very clear. All right. I think everybody, I'm looking at who had spoken earlier, and I think there's very few of you left. I don't know, Madam Speaker, I don't think you've spoken. And Senator Jim Moylan, if you haven't spoken yet, other than that, that pretty much wraps up everybody from speaking. Madam Speaker and Senator Moylan, Madam Speaker, do you plan on speaking on this amendment first? Because we still haven't seen the amendment of Senator Tello.
Not to the amendment to the Shelton amendment.
No, would you like to speak to that amendment? Yes or no? If not, we'll move on and then.
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, Senator Moylan, I don't think you've spoken. No, you're good. Okay. So we're still waiting for the amendment from Senator Tello. I hate to keep going back and forth into recess just to wait for the amendment. We're going to give you a couple more minutes, Senator Tello, and then we're going to move on this amendment. The clock is ticking. All right.
Maybe we can set this aside and go to the next, that amendment that transfers over the lapses.
All right, so why don't we just go ahead and proceed then with the amendment of Senator Shelton?
Mr. Chair, you have to motion to set aside in order for us to go to another amendment.
Well, no, I don't think I need a motion to set aside when it's not even there. She's only going to proffer it when she does come out. So not unless anyone believes.
We're going to do a new amendment, Mr. Chair, because we still have Senator Shelton's amendment.
Right. Well, we don't have that amendment yet. Okay, so is there a motion? I think there was a motion by Senator Therese to set it aside.
We've been discussing Shelton amendment, so it has to be a motion.
And that's why I wanted to go to a motion to vote on Senator Shelton. So.
Okay, that's not what I
just want to.
Mr. Chair, I'm on the phone with Steve right now, and he's just verifying the number because it, like I said, it's very simple. It's just striking out the 570,339 and incorporating it with 251,343. That's the amendment. If you want me to type it into the chat, that's the simple amendment.
Nothing is simple, Senator Tello, because on many occasions everybody's spoken about it. So we want to see it live. Okay, please.
Okay, and Steve is verifying the numbers to make sure that DYA to 251.
All right. Well, keep doing what you're doing. You don't need to keep conversing with us. Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker, ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't even know if it's a point of order, if it's needed, but in the past, we never had to do a motion, we didn't motion to put aside amendments. We kind of just said, okay, everyone, we're going to move on to the next amendment, and then you would entertain it. And then I do agree that if we're going to proffer amendments, it has to be in writing in the beginning, everyone was all uptight about, sorry, but they wanted to ensure that we had amendments so everyone can read. So I don't think we should depart from that.
All right. I see. I've got a copy. Will somebody please post on the chat the amendment of TT? I guess that's Senator Tello Tari.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Line 24.
There it
Amendment
goes.
to the
Just
amendment.
loaded.
Okay, it just got uploaded, and we're gonna move on that, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve that. Senator Tello, I see your amendment now. Summer employment pursuant some striking this 570 to 318 is hereby appropriated from the general fund. Notwithstanding, I think everything else stays the same. It's just to reduce the amount from 570 to 318. Am I correct, Senator Tello? That's your amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, we talked about trying to keep DYA whole from FY 2020. I mean, majority of our agencies are being cut, and
all right.
But we all have that same feeling, right? So I'm still incorporating, Mr. Chair, the 300,000 that was in Section 2 that was given to DYA last year. Though I'm not, I mean, that's when I did the math to come up with this. And
your amendment
even though they're only
318,
asking,
okay?
Yeah, even though they're only this year, they're only asking for 200,000. I've incorporated the 300 that they asked for last year. So I'm just trying to give them exactly what they got last year for this year. And this will only happen if the second amendment that's supposed to be proffered allows the carryover of the 600,000. So,
all right, Senator Tello, we're gonna focus on your one amendment.
Okay.
Everything else we'll discuss when we see it ready. Okay.
Sure. And then whatever excess revenue that's left over, Mr. Chair, I mean that goes back to the general fund. So I guess we can make that amendment when the time comes, or if there's another agency in desperate need.
Everybody's going to be in desperate need, Senator Tello, but let's focus on your amendment, okay?
Sure,
and let's just keep it there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. So if you can go ahead and read off your amendment, as everybody have seen or not, have everybody seen the amendment? It's to reduce the amount of the 570 to 318,996. Am I correct, Senator Tello?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Does anyone would like to discuss that amendment to the amendment? Oversight of DYA, Senator Shelton.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to rise an objection to the amendment. We've heard from DYA of all of their needs here today, and how this $570,000 is really something to help them continue with their long-term solutions for our youth, to keep them out of our justice system, to implement the juvenile justice reforms that are required of them, to fund reentry programs, family engagement programs, this summer employment and youth training program, if it can come through. And Mr. Chair, I also like to object because the amendment itself is not following the rules of engagement, which you set forth for us, that if we are going to delete an appropriation or cut an appropriation, in the same amendment should come where you are appropriating that money. So the amendment is incomplete. However, I object to it altogether.
All right, thank you. Moving along, Madam Vice, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also raise an objection to this amendment because, as it was stated, is we're trying to make DOA whole contingent on another amendment that is proffered after this amendment, and we don't even know if that amendment will pass. And so really, if we're going to entertain on these consequentials, I mean, if we're going to do that, making it a right on a future amendment that we don't know the execution of it, if it will even pass or not, I just don't think this is a prudent way to proceed.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice. I'm looking for hands up there to speak. There being none, Senator Teller, would you go ahead and close your amendment and we'll go to vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, Mr. Chair, the Vice Speaker made some sense there. I mean, how are we guaranteed that an amendment that's going to allow the carryover from last year, you know, and in no way do I want to shortcut DYA, that's for sure. So I think I'm going to withdraw my amendment only because I want to first wait until the carryover is allowed. That way I'll feel better doing this and making sure everybody, because you never know until the fat lady sings who's going to vote for the, you know, that amendment. So I'm going to go ahead and withdraw my amendment and wait until that other amendment passes, and then I'll make that amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll withdraw my amendment until then. Thank you.
All right, motion to withdraw the amendment. To the amendment, are there any objection? Seeing none, just to stay with the rule that I've been reminded, we go to vote on that withdrawal.
And I also like to bookmark this area, Mr. Chair, so it'll allow me to come back.
You want to bookmark page 69 of DYA?
Yes,
okay.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there any objections? Okay, we're gonna vote first on the withdrawal, and then I'll ask the question about the bookmark, okay? Joe Meskin, please take the roll call on the withdrawal, the request to withdraw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to withdraw the amendment to the amendment, Chairman St. Augustine.
Aye.
Chairman St. Augustine, aye. Vice Chair Rajel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pidut Talahi. Senator Pidut Talahi, aye. Senator Kelly Marsh Titano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Titano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moreland.
Aye.
Senator Moreland, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitui.
Again.
Senator Taitui, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 15 ayes on the withdrawal.
Thank you, my colleagues. We will now move to the next amendment that Madam Senator Shelton has proffered. Page 69.
Mr. Chair, a point of order. We're still
yeah, we got to go back to the bookmark. I apologize. I just forgot that one. My colleagues, are there any objections to the bookmarking of page 69 by requested as from Senator Tello? There's no objection, so we would not need to roll call. Am I correct? I gave that guidance, that part of the rule. There's no objection, it'll be bookmarked. So page 69 is now bookmarked as requested. Joe, make sure you take note. Yes, Madam Senator, Senator Amanda.
Mr. Chair, I believe we were still on my amendment, the line 24, page 69, the main amendment. She just withdrew her amendment to my amendment. So if we can please vote on the actual amendment.
We didn't vote yours. Oh, I thought we voted on that one. Okay. We will move now to vote on your amendment. Senator Amanda Shelton. Joe Meskin, could you please read off the roll call so we can vote?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Shelton for line 24, page 69, Chairman St. Augustine.
Aye.
Chairman St. Augustine, aye. Vice Chair Rajel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pidut Talahi.
Again.
Senator Pidut Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Titano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Titano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moreland.
Aye.
Senator Moreland, aye. Senator Munya.
Aye.
Senator Munya, nay. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitugui.
Good.
Senator Taitugui, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 15 ayes and 1 nay on the amendment.
All right, my colleagues, thank you. The amendment passes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, that's 14 ayes, correct?
That's correct.
14 ayes.
Yeah, my apologies. 14 ayes, 1 nay.
All right, the motion passed, the amendment passes, will be engrossed in the bill. Now, I hope I didn't miss anything. Now we're gonna go back to the motion. If there's any objection to bookmark page 69. I see no objection to bookmark, then we will bookmark page, we'll bookmark page 69. Senator Shelton?
We have other amendment.
No, I understood, but it's still just to make sure that after your amendment, Senator Shelton, is still bookmarked, no matter what. That was the motion to bookmark. If later on she finds a way to, whatever. Okay, we're still gonna go to your amendment. I wanted to get to your amendment next. All right? Is that okay? Or are we out of sequence here? Because I know you do have another amendment.
Well, I would think the bookmark would come when everyone proffers their amendments for page 69 if there's someone who still wants to go back, but it's at the discretion of the chair. So
okay, why don't we just go ahead? We'll go ahead and bookmark it, then I'll ask that question from Senator Tello after the next amendment if she wants to maintain the bookmark, okay? All right, senators, and there's no objection, so there's no requirement for a vote. So we're gonna go ahead and move to Senator Shelton. You have an amendment, ma'am, on page 69.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have an amendment for page 69 to come after the last amendment that we just passed. So this would be also a continuing appropriation authorization for the department for all of the fiscal year 2020 funds. So as we just heard, we were unable to use the funds for the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program and any other lapses that the department will have. This amendment will allow them to continue using it in the fiscal year 2021. And it reads, continuing appropriation authorization, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the allotted but unexpended balance of funds appropriated to the Department of Youth Affairs for fiscal year 2020 and prior shall not lapse and shall continue to be available until fully expended to support the operations of the department.
Any of my colleagues would like to speak to that amendment? I'm looking for a wave hand. And I'm looking across, there being none. Senator Therese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the break, I confirmed with OFB, and maybe he could just say that again for the record, that of the 600,000, what is remaining? Because we were told by the director that some had been spent on personnel. So this is for the summer youth employment programs appropriations from last year, 600,000. We're carrying it forward, but some's been spent. So if you could just tell us that amount.
Okay, but before that, Senator Therese, this is on the amendment to carry everything forward. Did you want Steve to explain everything forward, or just you're after a specific amount?
Senator Shelton, am I on the amendment or the one carrying forward the youth employment program?
This is an amendment that would be inclusive of the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program appropriation from FY 2020. It would be all of their allotted and unexpended balance for the entire department. So what we are aware of is that 2 positions were paid for using the $600,000, but there is obviously a leftover balance of that, and whatever other balance that the department has, just like we've done for our previous agencies. In the event that there's something unexpended in the FY 2020 budget, then they can use that in FY 21.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so Mr. Guerrero, for the for the youth summer employment program that is being carried forward, it was 600,000. How much of that has been expended?
Senator, based on the AS 400 printout that I have in front of me that we ran this morning, the $600,000 appropriation, the balance, what has been expended to date is $355,379.43. That is what's been expended and charged against this appropriation.
All right. Okay. So I have no objection to carrying forward the last year's appropriations to DYA for this year. It's going to put them definitely over the level that, yeah, that they were appropriated last year. However, yeah, I'm just, you know, I guess I'm just a little bit, I want us to be cautious, and I want DYA, yeah, to be fully aware that, yeah, you know, we want this money to go to the youth employment program. We're now allowing it to go to operations instead. It looks like all your lapses can go to operations, and I'm just hoping that it's not all spent on personnel, but on actually the programs that you described, such as, you know, the reentry and aftercare program that you're planning. It's not implemented yet, and any other programs that you're able to implement this year, or as the subsidy, what's it called, stipends for the youth under that youth employment program. I don't want the bulk of it to go to employees as opposed to, you know, what the program's intended for. So thank you again, and I support that.
Thank you, Senator Therese. I'm looking for hands to discuss. There being Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, yes, I stand in full support of this amendment to allow DYA to continue the funding that was provided them last year. And hopefully, you know, the next amendment will keep them whole too as well. So I appreciate this amendment.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Other than that, I don't see any hands. We will move to the vote. Madam Senator Shelton, you wanted to close?
Yeah, just to close on the amendment, I want to thank my colleagues for their support of this to allow DYA to use the money that we've found within their existing budget, their FY 2020 budget, to allow them to use it for other operational costs, these other programs that we know are vital to our youth and to our entire community. So I want to thank them for allowing that flexibility through this amendment. And I want to ensure our colleagues that I also share those same concerns. I want to make sure that these monies go to the appropriate programs that I know DYA is working very hard to implement and to roll out. Over the next couple of months. And so I will do my due diligence. My colleagues have my commitment to work closely with the department to see these programs through and to practice my oversight in this regard for the remainder of the term. So just Masi, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Joe, take the roll call and let's go to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Shelton for page 69, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rigel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rigel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Ungan.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Ungan.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Ungan.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Talahi.
Ungan.
Senator Therese Talahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi.
Ungan.
Senator Pito Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Tyson.
Ungan.
Senator Marsh Tyson, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Aye.
Senator Munya, nay. Vice Speaker Nelson.
One more time, Madam Vice. Is that a thumbs up? You came in, oh, we just lost connection. Oh, there you go. There's the thumbs up.
Thank you. Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
I'm good.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Tatsugui.
I'm good.
Senator Tatsugui, aye. Mr. Chair, you have 14 ayes and 1 nay on the amendment.
Thank you, my colleagues. That amendment passes. Just to make sure we're still on track, that there is a bookmark request by Senator Tello for page 69. Is that request still valid, Senator Tello?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to, since we just dispense with this, I'd like to go ahead and provide my amendment right now, and I believe Joe has it.
All right.
If Joe can put it on the chat, I appreciate it if it's not on the drive.
Just give us a few seconds, please.
No problem.
It has been noted. Thank you.
All right. Can everybody see that? And if Senator Tello, if you could please introduce your amendment, and then we can go open the for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, what I'm doing here is trying to make DYA whole. Unlike some agencies that were cut, we noticed that DYA had some cuts. So what my amendment does here is to provide DYA with the same kind of funding they received in FY 2020. Excuse me. And by doing so, the amendment that passed prior to allow the $600,000 that was appropriated last year, but wasn't all spent, to continue on with the program. It's clear that they've already have 2 individuals that are coordinators. That funding has gone, sounds like half of the funding has gone just to employees, which I'm still trying to comprehend. How is $300,000 used for 2 coordinators? I mean, that's what Steve told us earlier, that 300,000 was used of the 600. And the only thing that was spent from the DYA director was to hire 2 employees. So maybe, Mr. Chair, after I'm done speaking or closing, I just think that this would allow them to continue on with the program, bringing the other 300,000 over that has not been spent, keeping them whole, DYA whole. And, in no means do I want to cut DYA. That's what I'm not doing here. I'm actually bringing them up to speed from what they received last year in FY 20. So my amendment is simple. Summer Employment and Youth Training Program pursuant to 21103 of Chapter 21, Title 19, Guam Code Annotated, the sum of $318,996 is hereby appropriated from the general fund to DYA to carry out the Summer Youth Employment Program. So as Eunice, we're crossing out what was appropriated to them this year for $507,339 on the Summer Youth Program training, and making it $318,996 instead, which makes them whole from last year. And that's all I'm doing here, Mr. Chair. We have other agencies that are in dire need too as well. So we need to consider that. And even though the savings is only $251,343, that's a lot to some agencies who were cut by 7%, cut by 5%, and some cut by 2%. It's still a lot of money.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I'm just trying to understand your statement earlier. You don't want to cut, but then you're cutting. Okay.
No,
Lonnie, maybe you.
I'm not cutting. That's not true, Mr. Chair. To make a statement like that is not true. We just had an amendment that allowed the carryover to go into DYA that gives them more money. Before this 318, they actually received a lot more before my amendment. So what I'm trying to do is just bringing them back to the same level that they got in 2020. So I'm not cutting from 2020, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'm not talking about 2020. Okay, I'm talking about the current budget. But okay, I'll have somebody else speak. I'll have somebody else speak to that.
The current budget does not allow for the $600,000 to be carried over. The current budget doesn't allow for that, Mr. Chair. We just made an amendment to do it.
That's correct. All right, thank you. Thank you, Senator Tello. I'll have somebody else speak to that. I see the Madam Vice Speaker, I see you shaking your head. Did you want to speak to that, or when I'm looking for if there's anyone who would
I'd like
to speak to.
give the
All right,
Oversight Chair an opportunity to speak on that.
all right, Senator, where you at? Senator Shelton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I, of course, object to the amendment and disagree with the retiring speaker. This does not make the department whole. This does not bring them up to the levels that they are requesting. This is, in fact, as you said, cutting from their budget. Yes, we made an amendment to allow them to carry over their FY 2020 funds that they were unable to use, an amount of money that was already in their budget, within their budget, just allowing them some flexibility to use it. This amendment does not give them more money. This amendment, in fact, takes away money and takes away from the mission of the Department of Youth Affairs, not only to provide youth correctional facilities, but to provide programs such as the Summer Employment and Youth Training Program, programs like family engagement, programs like reentry, and so much more. The cottage homes that the department runs, the youth resource centers in our different villages. This is what this cut will take away from all of these programs, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving along, I'm looking for hands to speak to the amendment. Senator Therese. And I'm not too sure Senator Williams is waving his hand, but okay, Senator Therese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I'm reading the amendment correct, it's not cutting DYA's entire budget. It's only cutting the amount that is allocated for summer youth employment program down to a level, because they were not able to use it in last year because of COVID. So the money is sitting there and we're bringing it forward for them, but we're leaving it at that same level. That's all it's doing. And it's, and I do, share the sentiments of the sponsor of the amendment that across the board, all the budgets have been reduced except for the Department of Corrections and DYA now, who will be receiving a little more than FY20. And I'm not saying they don't deserve more. I'm just saying that when we're looking across the board at $66 million in cuts, it is, I think we've done good for DYA to keep them up to these levels as much as possible, allow them some flexibility to use their money, allow them to carry over any balances. And if I could ask Mr. Guerrero, what are the balances, not in this summer youth program, but are there any other balances that DYA is carrying forward? Well, we don't know because FY20 is not over yet, but is that anticipated?
You are correct, Senator. It's very difficult at this point to determine any type of available balances. We still have at least a month and a half of expenditures to be posted. They are still encumbrances in the system that needs to be rectified. So it's difficult at this time to even determine what available balances are available. But also, please remember that they are a month and a half worth of charges that need to be charged against the accounts that are not reflected. And if you take those into account, what we're seeing as available balance today might not be here tomorrow.
Of course.
Let alone by the end of the fiscal year. So I just want to let you know, because whenever we talk about trying to avail and allow agencies to use unexpended balances, those are the unknowns. And that's where I like to, side on the side of caution to make sure that the intent is well noted. But if the intent is to try to augment, supplant, or at least help the agencies in the future by setting figures today, those figures can change by the end of the year. And like you said, might even shortchange the agency come next fiscal year. That's my only concern at this point. But I understand the intent. But until we know exactly what that balance is, it's hard to predict what we are doing and what we're trying to do come October 1st. Because if we take out and allow them only to use a certain balance as of today, come October 1st, that balance can change. And once we start the fiscal year, that intent is no longer there. We probably might have done more harm to the agencies rather than what's being proposed in the budget.
All right. I agree with you, Mr. Guerrero, and I think that's especially true for those agencies that are short, even with, you know, us, that they're short and we're saying, here's some lapses. And however, yeah, for this particular program, in this one amendment, it's only for the summer youth program. And they're not short because there's an appropriation. I mean, you know, they're gonna get the carryover from FY20, the money is there, and they're going to get, they say they are unable to implement this program because of COVID. We are carrying that forward, and I think it's prudent to carry over the amounts that they intended to use in this program, and that's reasonable, and that if, yeah, and that it would, you know, it just behooves them to get this program out in FY21 or yeah, that's what I'm really hoping, that they're going to be able to do that. But thank you. Oh, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I saw before Senator Kelly's Madam Vice Speaker, and she wanted Senator Sheldon to speak, but now she wants to speak. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to give the courtesy to the oversight. Mr. Chair, for me, I understand, I get it, but we're anticipating for funds in FY 2020 that we're not even certain will be the exact number when we come through with this. And then in 2021, we want to ensure that the operational needs are met, and we don't want to do anything that will require a greater load on Department of Youth Affairs and them having to scrounge in the last minute to find out where they're going to get their money from. And then it was mentioned that Department of Corrections and DYA saw an increase. Mr. Chair, Department of Corrections saw an increase because they finally hired people. We went through so many oversights with Department of Corrections. There's always been a huge disparity on their funding resources and revenues, and the officers have to pay. Every day the officers go in there and they put their life on the line, and they're threatened every day with these inmates. And so finally we found areas, ways, creative ways to recruit them and allow them to be vetted so that we can have more correction officers. And when we start to move these correction officers in, they start to feel more secure. You know, we still have a long way to go with Department of Corrections. They're still filling one officer for a 50-man bay. Can you imagine being the lone officer in a bay of 50 people responsible for 50 people? They're putting their life on the line. And these are, you know, these are not, you know, ordinary citizens, you know? I mean, the citizens, you have to watch these people. You have to protect yourself and your life, and you only have one person. You don't even have a battle buddy with you to help seek help if something happens. You have to deal with it on your own. And so I support this measure that for the Department of Corrections to get the increase. They long needed it, not deserve or not entitled. They needed this help, and they need more help. And then not to mention, we did an appropriation to an amendment to ensure that the GMH bill is paid for $2 million. So I don't see an increase into their appropriation. It's to fund them so that they can be safe and so the inmates can be safe. I went there, I walked to that prison like 4 times throughout my life. And it is not a pleasant place to be. It is a hardened environment. You have to get your mindset ready to go into those buildings and be prepared for anything and always be on alert. It's like being in war. And so they got that increase because we're trying to make forward movements to giving them what is needed and what is just. And you know, in writing this amendment, when you have a larger number crossed out and then replaced by a lower number, to me, it's a cut. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. Senator Kelly, I saw you waving. Yes, ma'am.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair. You know, I know this is a time that we're all being creative and trying to find flexibility, but when I voted on any of the lapses that we've looked at, you know, the intention was always the same. Let's help them out by giving them every penny, whatever that penny is, to help them make ends meet in this unknown landscape, whatever they have going ahead for them in FY21. And the intention also is that the programs have had to deal with just a multitude of unknowns, not only this year, but in previous years when we've had budget cuts as well because of tax cuts coming from the federal side, you know, from the US mainland and so forth. These have been tough several years. And so with this, the intention, as I understood it for these lapses, was also to give them a chance that if the program can go forward, that we're giving it that fighting chance to be able to go forward. So with the intentions of giving them every penny within their own budget already so that they can survive and possibly be able to carry out programs that we all talked about the importance of and how this is investing in our future. We got to catch them when they're at their youth. I mean, that's the best chance for helping them get into a healthy track and make it better for the entire community. So, you know, I understand trying to be creative and flexible, but my last point would be, right now, you know, we're hearing it seems pretty dire here, and to weigh that against an unknown dire makes it, I think, a little bit more challenging at the same time. So, yeah, I'm for supporting the intent of the lapses that we've been voting on all along.
All right, thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Moylan. Now you're waving this time, not scratching your hair. Okay, go for it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Steve, talk to us a little bit more. You know, we were talking about the $600,000. Now, did you say 300,000 of that was used for a couple of salaries? Is that correct? Am I misunderstanding you? But please explain that once again for me.
What I reported out to the committee, sir, was that of the $600,000, $600,000 appropriation, that $355,379 is showing up as expense against that appropriation. If you want to get the breakdown, you have to give me at least a few minutes. I need to go back into it. This is just a summary report that I have. I can't figure it out, at least to a certain extent, what the cost is. Give me a few seconds and I'll do it for you.
If you can just look at the big numbers, not the small numbers on that breakdown, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you want the big numbers, not the small ones, right?
Okay.
But they all add up, but understood.
All right, this is what I have. Okay, and this is from the AS 400. For personnel salaries, it's showing an expenditure rate of $260,688. For benefits, it's showing $94,690. The sum of that is, I believe, the $355,379 I mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay. So it goes to salaries and benefits, right? The majority of it.
That is what's showing in the system, sir.
Okay, so half of that for the program went to the payroll. Okay.
I would assume, Senator, at this point, the cost and the expenses being charged to this appropriation, I would like to think it's program related, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Thank you. Look, Senator Muña, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. I have a canine that's trying to get my attention right now. Sorry. Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. So I rise in support of this amendment, and yes, it seems like everyone, this amendment seems like a cut. It does, but this cut can be used for a lot of other things, like a fund that I've been fighting for since day one, which took a 85% cut, which the law allows them to get. So I do rise in support of this. Everyone is taking a cut, some 2%, all the way up to 77%. But unlike, the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, that's 85% cut. And they are getting their carryovers, So, I mean, that was also, and the reason why I voted no on those is because I also had some plans for that. Because if you take a look at the original bill, the original budget bill, 186. They were given from the Healthy Futures Fund $82,502. And then in this substitute bill, they were given a $600,000 increase from the Healthy Futures Fund for a program looks like is going to happen for the Summer Employment Youth Program that never happened. So yeah, I rise in support of bringing it down, not to cut them, but just to make them whole, because they got the carryovers from 2020. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Muña. I'm looking for any other hand waved. Otherwise, Senator Tello, go ahead and close your amendment, and we're going to go to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as I mentioned earlier, this is not a cut. If everybody has their calculators in hand, like I do, in fact, I have two of them on my desk, you'll see that in FY 2020, the amount that was given was $6,336,901 in FY 20. FY 21 was $6,085,897. There was a difference of $281,004 that was shortened. Then we passed an amendment that allowed $600,000 more to go into DYA to allow this carryover. So, Mr. Chair, every amount, even the smallest amount, if you think 251,343 is small, compared to what they're getting, and you said yourself, every little bit counts. Even the small amounts, if you add it up, it counts. It makes a lot, Mr. Chair, it was, earlier, I don't know why DOC was talked about. We were talking about DYA, so I was kind of not sure who we were talking about, DOC or DYA. But we're talking about DYA here, and then the issues they have. And Mr. Chair, there are a lot of programs out there in the juvenile reform system, through Behavioral Health Department, through Education, Department of Education, and through the courts. And all these departments and other agencies are doing their best to keep children from going to DYA. How about those agencies that need the assistance and services? That's their job. Department of Education, working with troubled youths. Guam Behavioral and Wellness, with counseling. And the court system. They're all doing their best, too, to keep the youth out of DYA. And I'm pretty sure if we go down the line, we're going to find that they were all cut. All of them were cut. The ones that I mentioned. I'm not cutting DYA, I'm making them whole from FY 2020. And like I said, if you have your calculator in front of you and you do the math, you'll find out that they are made whole again. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, they're given in just a little bit more than what they received last year as a whole. So that's what this amendment does. And if you think in your mind when you vote on this, that you're voting on, one, keeping DYA whole, and two, the extra 251,343, that's going to make you feel good when you add it to another agency that does just the same thing as DYA does. They work to keep our children off the streets. They work to keep our children from going to DYA. So maybe we can give it to one of those agencies. Because DYA, in this amendment, still makes them whole. And I humbly ask for everyone's support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Now, Joe Meskin. Let's take the roll call. Let's
you,
move
Mr.
on this amendment and move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Taitigui for line 20, page 69. Chairman St. Augustine?
No.
Chairman St. Augustine, nay. Vice Chair Rajel?
Nay.
Vice Chair Rajel, nay. Vice Chair Shelton?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shelton, nay. Speaker Munoz-Barnes?
Aye.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, nay. Senator Lee?
Aye.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Teresa Lahi?
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi?
Aye.
Senator Pito Talahi, nay. Senator Marsh Taitano?
Aye.
Senator Marsh Taitano, nay. Senator Castro?
Aye.
Senator Castro, nay. Senator Moylan?
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya?
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson?
Aye.
Vice Speaker Nelson, nay. Senator Perez?
Pass.
Senator Perez, pass. Senator Torres?
Nay.
Senator Torres, nay. Senator Taitigui?
None.
Senator Taitigui, aye. Senator Perez? Senator Perez?
Aye.
Senator Perez, nay. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 4 ayes and 11 nays.
Thank you, my colleagues. The motion fails. We move on. Senator Tello, did you want to still bookmark this page? Or
No, Mr.
did you?
Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Chair.
Thank you. My colleagues, it's 11:43, and the next page will be moving on because this would end. Senator Amanda Shelton, did you have something else for DWA?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to first thank the director for being here during this budget hearing. And I wanted to thank her and the department for the continued work that they are doing to provide these services to our youth. Also thank our colleagues for the productive discussion and for their support of providing the funding needed at the Department of Youth Affairs. I also just want to make a comment on the amount of Healthy Futures Fund money going to the department. And I understand that there's a lot of frustration about the way this fund is used, and that we aren't able to give the full 15% to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund in this budget. But I'd like to remind all of our colleagues here that in the enabling legislation of the Healthy Futures Fund, it states that 72% of the taxes collected are subject to Legislature and Guahan's appropriation for the following purposes: health, education, public safety, and social programs providing awareness on tobacco and alcohol and substance abuse prevention, cessation, treatment, and control, programs and activities for improving overall health and well-being, and programs that enforce alcohol regulations, public safety and social programs that enforce alcohol and substance abuse regulations, reduce underage drinking, support traffic safety, reduce drug-related violence and abuse, community-based drug and substance abuse prevention programs. And these are all things that the Department of Youth Affairs does with our youth, with our underserved youth, with our youth that need a little bit more support, in addition to helping our youth in the community with their other programs. They're not just a youth corrections facility trying to rehabilitate and prevent recidivism. They're mandated with the obligation to help all of the youth in our community see healthy and happy, successful lives. So I want to thank them for that.
All right, thank you, Senator Shelton. This completes page 69. We will now move to page 70. It's 11:45, my colleagues. I would like, thank you, Lonnie, for being here today.
Thank you, everyone.
I'd like
Thank
us
you.
to, all right, my colleagues, I'd like us to recess until 1:30, and then we'll get back on at 1:30. All right, it's 11:45. See you all back at 1:30. Thank you.